Alright, hello and welcome back to Torment Tides of Numenera. So recently, we found a gigantic clock that's not properly attached to time. Accidentally turns on some devices, had the chance to do something with memories that I didn't understand, and for once I wisely decided not to poke it until I know more of what's going on. So we visited Government Square, found the guy that we're going to need to get the badge from if we decide to commit treason and get executed. It looks like if we give him some cash to buy a pair of boots, that there may accidentally be something left in there. We also caught this nifty fish. It's an oddity, so it doesn't actually do anything. It's also worth a kind of a pile of money. No, oh, no. Okay, in all seriousness, if the developers watch this, you need to put OK down here and put discard and use somewhere else. Okay, so that should be safe to sell, and make some money to go ahead and buy our boots. So at the moment, we just wandered into the caravanserai, and I would like to find an inn, and if I recall correctly, this was the place to look for it. Do you guys give directions? Okay.
Ready.
Oh look, here's our ball. And a silver orphan. This spherical pod is made of a silvery material interlaced with ribbons of energy. That's neat. I'm gonna get a good look at this. That's really cool. Okay. Envoys, not helpful. See, I want to come back and talk to these guys, but I would really like to refill my stat pools first. Omadden. This robed man turns a golden bespeckled gaze up and a winning smile upon you. He seems a charming enough sort, but it's clear he wants something from you, and is perfectly willing to take it. Politely and with absolute guile, of course. At last, he says, someone who looks like they can see further than their nose. These Sagasites are as observant as rocks. Classic opening. He clasps his hands together, pleading, Please tell me you've seen a beautiful girl with purple hair. Her name is Persia. She is my beloved, but she suffers from a madness that causes her to fear everything. She can't stop running from imagined dangers, and I've been chasing her for, years now, trying to catch her and cure her before she hurts herself.
I'll remember that.
I recently tracked her here to Sagas Cliffs, but none of these blind fools can remember seeing her, even though I believe she stayed here for a time. He grips your arm. Let me give you a description, so you will know her. She is heartbreakingly beautiful, and wears winged hair combs that float around her head, constantly changing the arrangement of her purple hair. Please, if you see her, or hear word of her, return and tell me. My name is Omadden, and I can be most generous. Hopefully he's not working with the slavers, and this isn't the girl we're supposed to find. Probably not, but... Alright. So, what caused her to go crazy? What's your story? He frowns, thoughtful. It is, I believe, some trauma associated with her birth or early life. We found that it could be overcome with love and care and certain medications, but even then, some lapses occur. It was during the last of these that Persia vanished. I have been on her trail ever since. Okay, so was it, or did you have her drugged docile and she finally got out? Alright, can you give me more details of what she looks like? Her speech may seem confused, so pay no mind to what she says. It is only her madness talking. Once she is returned to me, I will be able to cure her. Yep, I'm thinking it's more my idea. But, okay. So yeah, these ravings, what kind of things will she be saying? Almost anything, but one of her most persistent delusions is that I am her enemy. Nothing could be further from the truth. When she is in her right mind, she loves me as I love her, but when her madness is upon her... His voice grows soft. It is more painful than truth can say. They keep capitalizing truth, and that's bothering me, because I don't know what that means. That's a specific noun. So, yeah. So, I don't trust him. So, how did you two meet? We were at the same grave in the Valley of Dead Heroes. Ooh. A mutual friend. And in sharing stories of our love for that friend, we found that we were kindred spirits and decided we did not want to part when we left the valley. He smiles wistfully. Odd that a place of death could give birth to something so beautiful and undying. Valley of Dead Heroes. Okay. So, how do you hope to cure her madness? With love, mostly. But also with certain ancient technologies I've learned in my years of study for the cooling and untwisting of fevered and knotted minds. I'm positive that, once I'm able to isolate her from the corrupting distractions of the world, I'll be able to restore her to her true self. So, you've got a bunch of mind tools, and you're going to brainwash her again. Alright, we'll think about it. Cultists, sailors... Hey, this looks suspiciously like a bed. Devices near the head of this bed move to match the current time of day, shading the eyes of their occupants. Oh, neat. Tranquility. A woman as tall and graceful as a willow steps forward to meet you. She bows, then looks down at you with warm, gold-flecked eyes. Welcome, she says, to Tranquility's Rest. I am the proprietress, Tranquility. Cute. Are you looking for a place to take your ease? As she speaks, a sense of delicious calm comes over you, and you find yourself wanting to agree with her. There's nothing you'd like better right now than the peace and solitude of a quiet room. In fact, the feeling of calm you feel in your presence is so strong you wonder if it's entirely natural. That's when you notice Tranquility's soothing scent. Must be more than perfume. Perhaps a pheromone of some sort. Your perfume seems to contain some kind of pheromones. Are you manipulating me? She smiles faintly. If calming can be said to be manipulating, I suppose I am. But it is nothing more than that. I cannot control minds or influence thoughts. My scent seems to relax people. That, and another trick I learned, convinced me that opening a hostel might lead to success. So, forgive me for asking, but are you human? That's really not a given state of affairs so far in this world. She laughs melodiously. No need for apologies. Given my height, it's a natural question. I am indeed human. A human mutant, and fortunate to live in Saga's cliffs where that is not a crime. There are very few places in this world where someone like me would even be allowed to clean a hostel, much less own one. That's interesting. We'll remember that when we're out. Okay. Tell me about Tranquility's Rest. She smiles. It is the most peaceful inn in Saga's cliffs, with the most beautiful views. All rooms faced outward, so that the bustle of the caravansary is invisible and inaudible. All you see is sky and sea, and the roofs of the city far below you, and all you hear is the breeze. I am the sole owner, and I have been offering solitude, security, and discretion to travelers for 20 years. You will never have as sound a night's sleep as you will when you stay here. This is really neat. Must not ever rain here that they don't need to be concerned about weather. So, let's just ask you about this lady I've heard of. So I'm looking for a woman named Persia. She's said to be beautiful in has purple hair. Have you seen her?
Making a note.
She gives you a sad smile. Perhaps. Many people stay here, and this woman might have been among them, but I don't remember her. I'm sorry. And even if you did, you would not be telling me. That's okay. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Why would I want to be put into a trance? I'm not going to ask that question. So how much would it cost me to sleep? Ooh! I'm so pleased, and I'm sure you'll be most comfortable. The price is 20 shins per person. Okay, well I have 27 at the moment. I need to go buy my treason tools, so I'll rest later. Okay, farewell. See you in a bit. Well, that's unfortunate. I was really hoping to use that thing to refill my stat pool, but I've got some items that I can do that with. Hello! Okay, well that wasn't a useful thing to say. So, what are you guys, silver orphans? Two silver humanoids stand near a small vehicle of indeterminate origin. Their skin has a reflective metallic sheen that makes them appear both a part of and separate from the scenery around them. As you approach, both of them turn to face you. They have no mouths, and their eyes are a fathomless black, reflecting nothing. A name for these creatures rises from memory. Silver Orphans. It may not be the name by which they know themselves, but it's the name used by the Order of Truth. The Silver Orphans turn to stare at each other for several moments. Then the one on the right gestures at you in a complicated pattern. Seeing your confusion, the one on the left kneels, using a foreshortened figure to trace lines and circles in the dust at your feet. Ripples radiate from a point, first a square, then a human eye, then an unrecognizable mass of interconnected dots. The Silver Orphan looks up at you, awaiting your reply. Okay. I'd like to try to interpret the drawing, but I don't have any intelligence to use at the moment. Can I? Let's come right back. Let's take a look here. This only heals 3 points of intelligence. Speed, might. Alright, I am gonna go spend 20 shin on a room. Hopefully just for me. I'd like a place to sleep. Oh, 20 per person, so I need 60.
In this world, then.
So do I use one of my 3 points of intellect? Yeah, let's go ahead and use it. Because I really want to have the opportunity to speak to these things. Okay, so I have machine lore and I do not have a nemesis. I have quick fingers. Ah, shoot. I should know these things. So I do have concentration increase and machine lore, but not a nemesis. I do have quick fingers, but that's two separate people. I don't think we can both. I don't know if we can or not. So I have concentration and machinery, and he has quick fingers. So we have two of these, and one of these. Alright, let's try to interpret it. I absolutely want to succeed at this. Dominant tides have shifted. Interesting. Success. You stare at the drawing, following the lines and shapes with your eyes. There, a wave of words? And there, the human eye, still recognizable amongst the dots and lines that surround it. Behind the eye, the square, and something familiar, like a tool you once held in your hands. Like the resolution of meaningless noise into the refrain of a beloved song, you suddenly know what it is the silver orphans seek. Machine intelligences, however, or wherever they may be concealed. The orphans watch impassively as you reach this realization. Then the one on the right holds out a hand in a request for information. Okay, I will let you know if I find any. Wonder if they're either machine intelligences themselves or the product thereof. Memorialists, what are you? Not useful is what you are. Okay, I've already met you. Okay, what do we have going on down here?
All right.
Okay, so Sylph. This pretty young woman stands unnaturally still. Suddenly, her large glassy eyes spring to life with the rattle and quickly lock with yours, before just as quickly snapping away. Her skin, as fair as porcelain, is cracked beneath several layers of dirt and faded makeup, and on the side of her neck you see what appears to be a small tattoo of vertical lines with glyphs etched at the bottom. For a moment, familiarity overwhelms you, disappearing as a minute shudder runs down her arms. Her gaze snaps back to your face, but not to your eyes. She's staring at your tattoo. Jerkily, her hand rises to touch her own. Well met. I am called Sylph. You notice the slight pause before she pronounces her name. Her voice has a purring quality under which you can hear the spinning of countless gears. She coughs just once, and a small greenish cloud emerges from between her lips. How did you come by that mark? So you're a construct of some kind. Well, it's not a secret that I'm a cast-off. Got this big thing on my head and everyone seems to know who I am. So, I'm a cast-off of the Changing God. You hear an excited clicking and her eyes flutter closed briefly. I appreciate your honesty, she says, the manic working of gears sounding from deep within her chest. Sorry, I can't imitate that. She regards you, head tilting to the side with a series of small ratcheting sounds. You have the absurd impression that the motion is meant to be flirtatious. I hope you will answer another question for me. Perhaps. Her voice takes on a more eloquent tone, deeper and richer than you've heard for her before. I wonder if you might have heard this old riddle before. She clears her throat and begins, as if reciting from memory. What comes in with breath and out with a word, transmutes upon death but can't be conferred. The words sound vaguely familiar, resonating in your mind even after she stopped speaking. Okay. Let's just look at these real quick. Life in with a breath and out with a word. Transmutes upon death but can't be conferred. I don't know. I just conferred life. Glory, no. Consciousness, love. Nothing. Let's see if I can remember where I've heard it before. The words sound familiar, but something about them is subtly wrong. Just when you think you've grasped the difference, it slips from your mind, and you're left only with Sylph's expectant gaze. I don't know. Sounds like a password. Honesty! She looks past you, her gaze going distance. There's a momentary sense that she's conferring within the chamber of her own thoughts. She opens her mouth and breathes in once. Probability is high, she says, though whether to you or herself is unclear. We shall continue. That's interesting. I have one last question to ask of you. You may not have an answer. She looks beyond you, remaining still for some moments while the gears inside her stomach clatter and whir. Then she meets your gaze again and asks her question. What would you do if you met someone who had succeeded at your life's work before you, and they refused to share their method? Wow. Beg them to tell me. I would kill them. Nah. I'd find my own method. I would find a new life's work. So... okay, here's my thoughts. Killing them? No. That's not how I roll. I beg them to tell me. That I don't agree with. So here's my thoughts on it. Just because someone else has succeeded at your life's work doesn't make your quest or your method or frankly the entire purpose of your life meaningless. I mean, there's always someone better at something than you. There just is. I mean, there's only a handful of people in the world that are ever at the apex of any given thing. So it doesn't bother me that there are people who are better than me at everything. So I am going to say that I would find my own method. That doubtless would be difficult. The darkness behind her eyes swirls with glints of metal as her pupils dilate fully. They snap back to normal and she bows slightly. I wish you luck in your endeavor. I have no more questions for you. Okay, so I have lore in both machinery and natural, so let's examine Sylph a little more closely to try to determine her origin. Okay, you guys are terrible at this. So I can blow all my points. Well, let's just do it. You study her cracked porcelain skin, the way her joints are covered by the seams in her clothing, and what must have once been a remarkably pretty face. You recall a fragment of ancient machine history, discovered by your sire in a place called the Wheel of Baz. Automatons like Sylph were created in many different shapes to please their owners, no two alike, all handcrafted and unique. Only a few survivors were known to the machine minds of Baz, and those went for sale to the highest bidder. It seems likely that Sylph started her life as one of those abandoned constructs, having somehow retained her consciousness despite supposed deactivation. For good or ill, she is now her own person, and, from the sound of her inner workings, one with an expiration date. I am Sylph. I am at your service. That wasn't a terribly useful conversation, although interesting. Barkeeper. Okay, so does this say the Cave of Last Words? Interesting. Alright. New person. Tarnak Hobbs. This man's brow is creased with worry. He avoids your gaze, his eyes fixed on a point to your left and far away. His trembling, battered fingers pluck at the air. He stares through the chattering customers, the bar, as though he is utterly alone. Stepping closer, you see a thick blue crease running down his throat into the depths of his heavy robes, and orderly rows of azure holes pierce his bony arms from elbow to wrist. Discord, he says as you approach. Scarred melody. Too many voices. Hurts. His words stream out one by one in a subdued and continuous monotone, tumbling over each other as if in a blind rush to escape. I'd like to take a closer look at him. He does not meet your eyes as you step closer to examine him. Instead, he winces as though your presence is somehow painful to him. You watch him move and track the twitching of his fingertips. You hear a low vibrating whistle, although it is not coming from his mouth. What are you doing here? Wayfarers bring me broken Numenera. I repair them for pay. I need to eat, he cries, and you don't think you're the target of his anger. The wayfarers thank me, he says, swallowing. They do not know I have remade their Numenera. They do not know they will also be remade. Can you remake any of my Numenera? Instead of asking to see your belongings, he looks at you for the first time. His pupils are as dark as the space between the stars. No, he says after a long moment. His eyes flick back to whatever distant, terrible place has so captured his attention. You're wounded. A broken instrument. He has no use for you. He. So you didn't even look at my belongings. Do you have anything you can remake? No. You are worthy but broken. What exactly are you looking at? The grand hall. The spiral pinned by broken columns. The invisible roof. He stops with a gasp, and a tear rolls down his sturdy cheek. He tells me not to share our secrets with you. You are not of the choir. You are discord. A cold wind coils down from the rooftop, flicking at his tattered robes. I've never heard of the runes you speak of. He gasps again and clutches at his chest. Beneath the man's agony you sense otherworldly indignation and ageless despair, deep as oceans. Not ruins. Fallen to the foundations, yes. A car will rise once more when the choir awakens. His gaze meets yours. The conductor will reward your curiosity and allow me to tell you what I have seen. You need only ask. I wish to know what you have seen. Before my becoming, I found a pit ringed by stone, deep in the Arven wood. Broken pillars at the edges. I stepped inside, breathed the dusty air. He pauses, passing a shaking hand over his mouth. I was lost in the grand hall for days, decades. Pillars twisting like hallways, spiraling. The ringing of bells, whirling chandeliers, listening to the song of the lost choir. I was an audience becoming an instrument. Finally I slept, and I awoke here upon the heights. Arven Wood. Okay, that's a place we don't know yet. He took my voice, the man says, his eyes dull and distant. But my blood sings. I am becoming. I dream. And I remake Numenera for wayfarers, so they will become and dream as well. And together we will go into the forest, to the ring where the grand hall once stood, and rebuild. So he remakes Numenera for wayfarers so they can become in the same way that he's become, huh? So it may be a good thing that he doesn't want to do anything with us. He falls silent, his eyes wide and wet, as if dreaming of the city that lives in his mind. What is it that you think you're becoming? An instrument, he says, swaying. A doorway. Before, I remade Numenera. Now I wake and find devices the conductor has made for me. He is generous. Look, he says, smiling, and pulling aside his robes to bare his bony chest. Countless devices are embedded in his flesh, looping endlessly in and out of his ribs, linked by tubes or wires to an opalescent sphere at the base of his throat. Ew. You study the blue crease, the subcutaneous cable, leading from the sphere into his skull. You suddenly recall seeing a similar device in your studies and understand what this one is meant to do. Soon this man will go to sleep, and something will awake in his place in his body. A doorway indeed. Something will wake in his place in his body. So this is, what, remaking his mind? You said that you dream. What of? Proud a car at its peak, he says, gaze locked on the distant ruins of the city. Instruments of metal and flesh ringing the balconies of the grand hall. The conductor, our heir, breathing him in forever. So, you ran into something that decided to absorb you. That's pretty creepy. Farewell. So before I continue on that way... Okay, let's go continue up this way. We haven't been up here yet. Ooh.
Allow me.
Atop a small plateau, you can just make out the top of a small dome of scintillating blue energy. Cool. There's a merchant. But nothing interesting to say.
Of course.
Sailors, laborers. So, airships, apparently. Interesting. Okay.
Go.
There's a sailor. Do you have anything interesting to say? Not taken to the air tonight, are you? Bad night for it. Driftwood held aloft by suspension platforms provide a useful, if somewhat perilous, bridge between the dock and the ships moored in the area. Yep, not touching that. I did get where I am today by jumping on top of the suspended platforms. Oh, wow! Look at this stuff. What is this? What is that? That doesn't look healthy. Ooh. Healthy for me. I'm sure it's healthy for itself. And a tower. Amazing. Alright. Let's go meet this gentleman. Ooh, come back to that. Master Renio. This airship master is keeping a nervous eye on his vessel. He is short and a wiry man, dressed in travel-stained but well-kept clothing. He is chewing on his impeccably groomed mustache in frustration. As you approach, he turns away from his vessel. Welcome to Master Renio's aerophile adventures. I'm afraid I'll not be departing any time soon, not since the theft. He says the word carefully, as if holding it at bay. I've always taken pains to see the best in people, he confides, swallowing hard. But that was before that runty, glowing, straw-haired idiot stole the coronet, my prized airship. He shakes his head, genuinely distraught. Until that thief is caught, my ship remains in dock, safely shuttered and chained. So, how was your ship stolen? Of course, he says, looking grateful that you've taken an interest in his plight. The vagrant asked to borrow my airship first, if you can believe that. I refused, of course, and as politely as possible. He shakes his head slowly, sorrow stealing into his face. I only looked away for a moment to sign some paperwork, and when I looked back, he was already in the air, waving from the railing. You know, I'm kinda do-gooding. I'll keep my eyes open. That would be a great relief, he says, sighing. If you do stumble over him, bring him to me. I want to look the thief in the eyes and ask him why he did this to me.
Making a note.
In the meantime, what can Master Renio's aerophile adventures do for you? Have you seen a beautiful woman with purple hair? Purple, you say? I cannot say that I have, but I've been pretty preoccupied of late, as you might imagine. My apologies. So, who are you? The tiniest smile creases his face. I am the proprietor of this business, and a ship's captain. In happier times, I ran a fleet of vessels to various ports of call. He shrugs. These are not happier times, and my fleet has been reduced. Now I have but a single vessel. He shrugs. Such is life. You build for your family, and the vicissitudes of fate drive your plans into the rocks. But my struggling enterprise is the least of the gifts I hope to bequeath to my heirs. I try to teach them dedication, endurance, fairness in all dealings. He shoves his hands into his pockets. What good would it do them to see me take unfair advantage? I'd rather be ruined than teach them that falsity is the route to success. Unfortunately, my friend, crime pays. He laughs softly. My apologies. This has been much on my mind of late. You did not ask about my philosophy. It's understandable. I mean, you did just have someone steal your airship. So where do you travel, anyway? I once flew as far as Agurkala, soaring above Avron Wood. And the unmeasured depths of Ornu Lake, above the lava fields of Esophagan, and the plains beyond. I flew south over the ruins of the Tabat homelands, and east to the oasis of Mirage Oleus. He gestures at his single vessel. Now I fly solely to the Valley of Dead Heroes, conveying mourners and memorialists to the unchanging tombs. Okay, so I wonder if we can see the woods somewhere in the background. That's interesting.
Making a note.
Of course, I'm not flying anywhere at the moment, not while the thief who stole my other airship walks free. So what can you tell me about the caravanserai here? Steeped in history, my friend, and you've come to the right man to ask about it. He adjusts his clothes and stands taller. This was once a staging ground against our foes, the Tabat. Our ancestors could observe the approaching enemy from here and direct their forces to meet them. They say that the defense was commanded from up there. He points towards a rocky outcrop on the far side of the plateau. Ooh, I wonder if that's the tower where I have the memory from. Now, instead of a place of war, it serves as a place of commerce, built for the good of all, both ourselves and our foreign guests. Sagas Cliff sits atop a great hoard of Numenera and does a thriving business in this stuff. We import foods, spices, textiles, and visitors from far-off lands. They arrive from Agurkala, Astaria, and Hayrest, among many, many others. My friend, this is a focal point of commerce in the Sagas Protectorate. He smiles. I play a small, but proud part. So, I'm still kind of curious what state secrets our thief friend here was stealing. Maybe something about the Numenera. Okay, well, farewell. I'll keep my eyes open. Should probably not be poking at his stuff. And what is this hatch? The synth panel lies flush with the ground. You can see no way to pry it open. Interesting. Okay, so... well, let's head back down here. And I would like to go check out the Cave of Last Words. But before we do that, I'm going to take a break. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.